Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of Reflection Week. 2015 has been a year of reading, and this year, I think it was probably this year towards the end of last year, I joined Goodreads.com. This is not a sponsored video, but I joined Goodreads.com and I sort of half-heartedly used it. But one thing I did do was sign up to their book challenge with the aim of reading 10 books throughout the year. I was rather surprised when at the end of the year, when I finally logged on to log the books that I had read, that I actually had done it, that I actually had read more than 10 books this year. But I just wanted to share with you some of the books that really had an impact for me this year. A lot of my reading I do on my iPad, on the Kindle app, so I don't have a physical book, but what I will do is insert pictures of the books where I can. But I just thought I'd share with you 5 books that I've enjoyed reading in 2015. Book number 1 is Lost and Found by Sarah Jakes. I saw some videos on YouTube towards the end of 2014 and I heard a little bit of Sarah Jakes' story. For those of you who don't know, Sarah Jakes, who's now I think Sarah Jakes Roberts because she's got married, is T.D. Jakes' daughter. And I sort of saw some videos on YouTube which sort of gave an insight a little bit about her story, and I was quite intrigued to actually read her story. Her book Lost and Found I really quite enjoyed. It was sort of a biographical book, just telling her story of the journey that she went through as she found God for herself. And I really enjoyed the book because I think sometimes when we see people on TV like Bishop T.D. Jakes, or we think of children who are pastors' kids, the assumption can be that everything's going to be perfect, it's all together, there's not going to be any troubles with having faith in God, and they're just going to be this perfect, happy, rosy family. And it was really nice to read a book where someone was being very real about where they were, about the fact that despite growing up in church, she still had to come to her own personal saving knowledge of Christ, and also the journey that she went through. I found it a really interesting book, really encouraging book, and it was just a good read really for 2015. Just to hear someone else's story. One of the themes that I always say in sanctuary brunches is that everybody has a story, and very often we can come to a conclusion and can look at someone and assume that because they have this position or have this amount of money, they must have a perfect life. And this book really for me pointed out that everybody has a story, that you should never judge or come to conclusions about someone because the fact is you don't know what their story is. Book 2 is called The Promise of a Pencil. Now this should really be a book of 2014 as well, because I read it first in 2014 and I loved the book so much that I read it again in 2015. This is a really inspirational book, and I think it's a book that I'm going to be reading year upon year just to keep me focused. There are certain books that I sort of have on my bookshelf or on my Kindle bookshelf now that I will revisit because I want to be reminded of the key principles. And this book, Promise of a Pencil, is by a guy called Steve Braun, I think. Anyway, I'll insert the picture. And I came across him whilst watching a video by Marie Folio, who I like to watch on YouTube, and just hearing a bit about his story. He really is an example of how an ordinary person can do extraordinary things, which I think is actually the strapline of his book. But it's a book that really challenged me to not limit myself on what I can achieve in life or for God. He is someone who from $25 started now a global charity that builds schools in areas of need. And what I learned from the book was that it's not really about having a load of money to start things off, but it's all about mindset. And as I read the book, it was really interesting to see how a lot of it was about his mindset and his way of thinking that really impacted his ability to have the impact that he has. So really inspirational book. Maybe I'll read it again in 2016. Highly recommend it. If you are someone who wants to have an impact on the world, someone who wants to make a difference in some way, have a read of the book because it will inspire you to move ahead and do great things. Driven by Eternity by John Bevere is the third book that had an impact on me this year. I read it before, but last time I didn't finish it. But this year I read through it, and it is an excellent book. I really recommend that every Christian should read this book. And if you're not a Christian, but you want to know a little bit more about what Christian life is about, or what just living a life of meaning is about, read the book. It has an excellent sort of storyline in there, which really unpacks Judgment Day for both Christians, for believers and non-believers. And then it really challenges you to look at how you live your life. And that combined with the theme of discipleship, which was the theme for my church this year, and the Great Commission, it really had a sobering impact on me looking at my life and considering how much of my life is governed by what should actually be the underlying reason why I'm here. So Driven by Eternity is a book that will challenge you. But I think it's always good to read books that challenge you. So I don't think it's always about reading a book that just, you say, oh, that was a nice read, but something that challenges you possibly to do something different or to reconsider things. So if you haven't read Driven by Eternity, I highly recommend it. If you have read it in the last few years, as I say again, just go and have a read again. Get reminded of those key principles, because they are so essential to have a purposeful life. Book 4 is a very special book for me, and I actually have a hard copy of this book, and it's very special because I actually know the author. This book is called The Altar, and it's written by a lady who actually goes to my church called Nicola Williams. Nicola Williams is also on YouTube, known as Noble Wife Nick. And it is really a book of testimony about telling her story about an encounter, a season where she encountered God. It is a lovely read, an encouraging read. And I don't want to go into it too much because I think you should just buy it and read it. But it just talks about how God has spoke to her during a difficult time, and how God works within her family in a challenging time. So for me, this was a lovely read, really encouraging. Got me thinking about my personal walk with God, as well as also it's just always fantastic, I feel, to see people that I know going for it and achieving what they want to achieve for God. So good read. The link below where you can click to Amazon and buy it, so grab a copy. And finally, book 5. Book 5 is also very special because it's actually written by a sanctuary lady. It is called The Email, and it is written by Sonia A. Pemberton. This is a fiction book, and it's actually sort of a crime mystery book. And to be honest, I'm not usually someone who reads these kinds of books, but it was absolutely brilliant. What I loved about this book was that it was something that really sort of got you thinking about a real life issue, a social issue that's in our society, and challenged you to look at it face on face. I thought it was a fantastic read. It really was a case of I got partway through it and then I found myself in a situation where I literally could not put it down, completely devoured the book, read it in a week, and was just left to it, got to the end of it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And again, this is another book and another testimony of someone who decided to go for it, decided she wanted to write a book, and just did it. And, I have both of these books on my shelf because I have them there, not just reminders as to how good the books are, but also because it reminds me that, when you want to go for something, it's just about going and doing it. And these are two women who I feel have gone for it. I think sometimes when we hear about a published author, we can think it was really easy. But to actually know these two women and see that they've just decided to go for it has been really encouraging for me to see. So those are my top 5 books for 2015. I am sure that there will be books that I will enjoy in 2016. I probably will give myself another book challenge, probably to read more than 10. And one thing I would like to know, if you are interested in maybe having a book feature throughout the year of 2016, perhaps sharing books as I read them. For some of the books where I know the authors, if they could come along and maybe have a chat about their book, that would be great too. So let me know if that's something that would interest you. Comment in the comments below, and also share with me what have been the books that you have read in 2015 that you have really enjoyed and found encouraging. Until next time, I will see you tomorrow for day 3 of Reflection Week. Take care and God bless. Bye!